Hello everyone, welcome back to Behind the Lab. My name is Tom Morrissey. I'm the Artistic Director of Theater Now New York.
And I'm Colleen Harris. I'm the Managing Director. This is our series where we talk to our writers in our Musical Writers Lab and learn more about their process and the projects that they're working on. Today, we are reconnected with Jonathan Bauerfeld and Casey Kendall, who we spoke with about a year ago, but they're back with us to talk about the progress they've made since then. And they are actually quarantining together on an artist retreat in Vermont.
One of the musicals that Jonathan and Casey have been working on is The Jury, and we had planned last March 2020 to produce a workshop production of The Jury, and unfortunately because of COVID it had to be canceled. So we do hope that you will look and stay in touch with us, because in the future we will be rescheduling that once we're all able to get back together again.
You can find out more about John and Casey at the links in the description.
And if you have not been joining us before in this Behind the Lab, on our YouTube page, you can certainly revisit our other Behind the Lab sequences. They're all wonderful, and I think you'll enjoy that. Also, our handle is @TheaterNowNY, so please follow us. And our website is www.tnny.org.
Now here are John and Casey.
Hi, I'm Casey Kendall. I am the lyricist and librettist.
And I'm Jonathan Bauerfeld, and I'm the composer.
Thank you for sitting down with us again. We're excited to catch up with you. It's been almost a year since the last time we talked to you, and I'm wondering what has changed in that year in your partnership and in the development of your work.
Yeah, since we last spoke, a lot has changed in the world. I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but news keeps going and the pandemic keeps happening. And in the musical theater world, us and everyone we know really has been sort of struggling, and in some cases even succeeding at adapting to a more digital workspace. It's very unusual to not be in the same room with people when you're working on lyrics and music, but also with performers, you're sort of like sending stuff off into the void and getting stuff back from them. It's a detached and kind of different process, and we're adapting to it.
Yeah, and I think we've had some great things happen in the past couple of months, including ECU was able to produce a remote streaming version of The Jury, and my alma mater actually is about to produce a version of The Book of Names, which is another show that we wrote together. And we've been using the time trying to produce digital content that we hope to release soon, hopefully on some sort of schedule that we can let you guys know about.
Yeah.
Of demos that we've been producing, because demos are something that you can do at home. We've been sending stuff out to actors that have microphones, musicians that have microphones, orchestrators that have the ability to do MIDI mockups. So we've just been creating as much digital content as we can in a way that still feels like musical theater and not musical theater.
We'll make sure everybody knows how to find those demos. If they're already out, then they'll be in the video description below. And if not, then you can follow John and Casey at the links that are down in the video description. So make sure that you're staying on top of all of their developments. Now, John and Casey, it's really lucky that you're able to be together now, even in the middle of a pandemic, because you've created this quarantine bubble there in Vermont to be together with each other. We're going to talk a little bit about The Jury now. And for those who aren't familiar with it, can you just tell them a little bit about The Jury and what it is?
So The Jury is a musical that happens after the death of Tess Butler, who has died of a heroin overdose in Seattle. She wakes up to find herself in a room of 7 jury members who will decide whether or not this is her final death or if she gets a second chance. So all of these people form this jury, and it's all people she knows.
It's really moving. It's a wonderful use of the special qualities of theater. Casey, can you tell me what was the inspiration behind telling this particular story?
The inspiration for The Jury came from 2 pretty different and distinct areas. One of my favorite plays and films growing up was 12 Angry Men, which is obviously about a jury who comes together and tries to decide the fate of a young criminal who's facing possible execution if he is convicted of the murder he is accused of. And the other thing that we were inspired by was the very real opioid epidemic that has ransack the entire country. But in Seattle is also a huge problem amongst the youth. And I grew up in Seattle, or the Seattle area, and I remember distinctly the first time I ever saw a homeless person who was my age, and I was still in high school at the time. It was a very strange experience. They asked me for money, and I talked with them very briefly about how they got to where they are. And the youth homeless problem in Seattle is still ongoing, and is entirely as a result of opioid addiction. It is a really tough problem, and the city has tried a lot of different things that could potentially help, but it seems to be a bigger problem than even a city government can actually really solve.
Yeah, and we wanted to talk about that problem in a personal way, and not so much, there are a lot of articles about it, like this many people are homeless, this many people die of opioid addictions.
Right.
But it also, all of those statistics don't really talk about the effect that has on the rest of their families as well, and all the people that they know. So the choice to have this jury full of people that have been affected by the life that Tess had is an attempt to show that an opioid addiction like this doesn't just affect the person that's addicted, it affects their whole support system. And we really wanted to examine the question, like, when should you give up? When is it too much? How a lot of it is choices they made to get there, but at what point do you come together and decide to help, or do you come together and have to, for mercy's sake, give up? So it's a lot of hard questions.
Yeah, a lot of hard questions. And I feel like a lot of times in theater, when we see these really difficult subject matters being dealt with, it's in straight plays and not in musicals. What is it about this story that you felt that music could really help to elevate this difficult subject matter? And what style of music did you use?
Yeah, so you talked about there being a lot of straight plays about this topic, and here we have a musical. So what is the style of the music? And I think every time we write a song, we're thinking about, why is this a song? Why does this sing? Why are we not just talking? And one of the things that we talked about a lot in this show is that it's a very heavy topic. There's a lot of, sad and hard things to talk about. So what we wanted the music to do is speak to those underlying emotions that are not on the surface of what these characters are actually saying. So Down at the Bottom of the Well, which is a song that we'll show later in this video, is a song about Tess's ex, who is making a very passionate and loving argument to vote no and not bring her back to life. And when we started writing this song, I wanted it to be a love song, and not a song about giving up, but a song about love. And the reason she's saying these things is because she has so much love for this character. So we used some tropes. There's this tradition in musical theater in the past 20 or so years of this kind of Jason Robert Brown storytelling song that kind of just makes you feel comfortable, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna like lean in and listen to this story, hopefully. So that's kind of where we're pulling a bit from the like contemporary musical theater world. It's not particularly one thing or the other, but the music, we always try to have the music tell the truth of that might not be on the surface of what they're saying. And that's why we made it a musical and not a play, because these topics are so hard to talk about while also giving you the correct emotion, because you can be saying things that seem really contradictory to love. Like, I think we should let this woman die. Like, that seems like a really contradictory thing to say about somebody you would love. But people who have had people they love go through heroin addiction and seem so far gone that they can't possibly get them back will say those things, but mean it with love. And I think the music is just a great way to amplify that and show that to the audience and elevate it in a way that oftentimes a really great actor can do by themselves, but we like to give it to the violin as well.
Now let's take a listen to that love song. This is the part of the show where Tessa's ex-lover is discussing why she should or shouldn't be given another chance at life. Let's see if you can hear that pull between love and loss and resignation. See if you can feel some of that emotional heft being carried by the violin, as Jonathan mentioned. And also take a look at Casey's wonderful lyrics here in this lyric video. This is Bottom of the Well from The Jury by Jonathan Bauerfeld and Casey Kendall, sung by Amy Petroshka.
She was bright and charming, blunt but otherwise disarming, with a carefree air and flair for who gives a fuck. She didn't talk about her past, and we started moving fast, and all the while I couldn't believe my luck. I was broke and broken, it's better left unspoken. We were both a mess, but Tess and I didn't care. We settled down in our new place, where the sunlight filled the space, and it was small, but it was something we both could share. She said we were stuck in a well, steep walls, mossy stone, and we'd help each other climb the rope when we couldn't climb alone. And we kept pulling the rope, we kept on holding on hope, hand over hand, together as a team. If we kept pulling the rope, we'd finally live our dream and quickly forget the way that we met down at the bottom of the well. I said, Tess, hey honey, now we've saved some money. What do you say we stay this way all our life? Let's finally both get clean and let nothing come between. And that's the day I asked her to be my wife. She said yes, we married, drugs and all of that got buried, 'cause life is tough enough without all that shit. But something in her snapped, and she suddenly felt trapped. And I found out she never could really quit. And I kept pulling the rope, I kept on holding on hope. Then I climbed down, but something tugged me back. I felt this pull on the rope, this sudden sense of slack. In that moment of hell, I watched as she fell down to the bottom of the well. When I'd catch her high, she'd promise she would stop. When I'd find her stash, she'd promise she would stop. I tried and tried, she lied and lied. She promised she would stop. Again and again. Again and again. But I kept pulling the rope, I kept on holding on hope. I never stopped or ever had a doubt. I kept on pulling the rope, I almost pulled her up. But the harder I'd yank, the deeper she sank down to the bottom of the well. And I kept pulling the rope, I kept on holding on hope, but nothing helped, and I began to sink. So I let go of the rope and stepped back from the brink. She kept pulling down, she wanted to drown down at the bottom of the well.
What has it been like to develop a show that deals with these real world issues? Is there anything that you've been surprised by, anything that you've learned?
Yeah, it's actually the biggest takeaway I have had throughout working on this show over the years is how many people have come up to us after seeing the show, or after being cast in the show, or after we've shared our ideas about the show with them, is how many people have stories of addiction, either in their own personal life or immediate family. It is. I've learned a lot about people in my family that I didn't know about, and friends of people in my family, and it is remarkable how widespread. I mean, addiction in general, but like opioid addiction specifically, like it is a silent presence in a lot of people's lives, and
It's hard to talk about.
It's really
it's hard to talk about, and I think one of the unexpected things that's happened, as Casey said, when people come up to us and say, "I know somebody, my dad, my brother, my sister, my grandma," like, you can tell that just watching this show and being able to experience and have some of their opinions shown on stage and heard and like normalized has actually, they've come up to us and been like, this is like, I have somebody, I know what this feels like, and it's hard to talk about. So sometimes watching it be talked about can help somebody process something that they haven't been able to talk about themselves. And we've had, as Casey said, we've had people in the cast that have immediate family members that were currently going through addiction. We both have people in our family that have struggled with that. And you don't have to go very far in America right now to find it. I mean, most people that see the show, or most people that have heard the show, know somebody.
Yeah. Once we knew that we were going to be talking about this, I spent a lot of time on online forums for drug users, because there's something about the anonymity of the internet that has made people like very honest and open about some, from my perspective, just incredibly difficult things that are very normalized for this large group of people. And so it's a strange world to start dipping your toes in, because there's a twisted logic to a lot of what an addict in the modern era will do, that is quite ironically sobering to someone who's not addicted in the same way.
Well, as Tom mentioned earlier, Theater Now was gearing up for a full production of The Jury. We really believe in this piece, and we hope to be able to do it soon, but it was postponed due to COVID. But in the meantime, Eastern Carolina University was able to produce a remote version of The Jury, and I'm wondering what you may have learned during that development process.
Yeah, I mean, so the ECU production was cool because we weren't actually super involved with it. And most of what we learned was a product of letting it kind of be in the hands of somebody else for a little while and then seeing what they did with it. Mm-hmm. How Michael, who directed the show, decided like where he decided the beats to be, what he wanted the staging to be. Unfortunately, because it was cut short, he was planning to do more staging than we got to see. But we did get to see a whole different set of actors reading this stuff. Mm-hmm. And they really didn't have any input from us. It was all Michael and them. And of course, we talked to Michael, and we had like a Q&A session with them at the beginning about our thoughts about the show. But seeing this whole new set of actors do the show, like every new person we get to see play one of these characters teaches us something new about the character. Mm-hmm. So seeing that was a really valuable thing, and it was, maybe counterintuitively, but quite valuable to not have our hands so much on that one and just to kind of let it be what it was.
It's interesting because like I don't know that John or I ever had a conversation about making changes to the script to accommodate the new medium it was going to go into. And I think that's true of most people we know that have done digital versions of theatrical things is trying as hard as you can to preserve the thing that is supposed to exist on a stage, is supposed to have a live audience seeing it, and acknowledging that you can't do that, but like not trying to, because I think it would have been a mistake to change it too much, to try to make it make more sense over Zoom, or make more sense for this, which is sort of like a closed black box filmed theater thing. Because then you're compromising like the underlying integrity of what you were trying to do to make this new thing work, which I think also would have like hurt our abilities to sort of evaluate where we were at with the theatrical version of the show.
Which hopefully we'll get to see soon. I mean, we have meetings with you guys all the time. We're really, really hoping that we're able to bring the jury to the stage as soon as it's safe to do so.
This has been a shining light in this pandemic. The fact that so many people have had their things canceled and just like, we don't know when it's coming back. We don't know. And Tom and you guys at Theater Now have always said postponed. And we've had meetings, and he keeps looking for grants. And it's been really helpful to know that when we're out the other side of this, you guys are with us. So, I mean, thank you.
Thank you. And we know it's going to happen. It's definitely going to happen. We're really excited too. Before that does happen, though, you do have another show that's going to be produced this spring. It's called The Book of Names. Can you tell me a little bit about the history of that show?
History of the show, yeah. Yeah, so the Book of Names shares actually some common DNA, at least on the developmental side, with the jury, which was originally done under a different title, The 12. And The 12 and the Book of Names were both created for the American Musical Theatre Project and the Royal Conservatoire of Scotland to be sort of showcase shows for their students in the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, which happens every August in Scotland. It's a massive, massive theater festival with probably 1,000 different performance spaces that take over the city, and large scale productions, one-man shows, and everything in between. A really, really exciting place to be. And I can't wait for the pandemic to be over and we can all go back and see shows there. So the Book of Names was our first year of doing this project for these two organizations.
So yeah, so it was at the Fringe with RCS and AMTP. And the Book of Names is a show about a group of immigrants arriving at Ellis Island in the immigration boom in around the 1920s era.
Right.
So we follow our group of, it's an ensemble show, so we follow a group of immigrants as they actually get stuck on Ellis Island because of riots on shore. So they're stuck there for 24 hours. And we basically get little snippets of their story. And the idea was to create a mosaic of what it was like to go through this amazing immigration station on one of the peak eras of immigration into this country.
Yeah, and as we were writing it, it was 2017, 2018, around that period, which is when news wasn't initially breaking, but it was sort of reaching a fever pitch on the immigration detention centers on the US-Mexico border. And it was the first time we were really hearing all of these stories from inside the centers of kids in cages and families that had been promised one thing and were being denied that promise now. And we were really interested in telling the story of Ellis Island because of the contrast between sort of the modern timbre of conversation and what was happening back then, which is really, there were advertisements in European ports from American states begging people to come and work jobs. There was an unquenchable thirst for immigrants to come to this country, and a huge recognition that immigrants is what made America great again. I can't believe I just walked into that.
Yeah, no, it's just this different era where immigrants, of course, immigrants always have a hard time going to a new place. And we're not saying that in the 1920s, immigrants came to America and had a really great time once they got there, because we all know about Irish need not apply, all of that stuff was definitely not easy. But at the same time, at least our government was not putting them in cages. They recognized the incredible power of people wanting to come to America for opportunity, and America was willing to give them that opportunity. And one of the things we talk about is the statistic that if you actually made it to Ellis Island, if you made it there on the ship, 98% of people that made it there were admitted into the country and allowed to start their life here.
Yeah, I mean, there's stories of people who were treated at the hospital on Ellis Island for multiple months, because if they ever got cured of whether it be like tuberculosis or whatever disease they were treating at the time, then you would be allowed into the country. And so the United States government was funding healthcare for immigrants because they wanted them to make it into the country.
There was
it would have
also
been much easier to just say, sorry, go back, get healthy, and try again.
Yes, and that did sometimes happen. And there were
Sure.
also a lot of volunteer organizations that worked at Ellis Island to help bring these people through. But it was a different time. And, we talk about the Statue of Liberty, the poem on the Statue of Liberty. I know a lot of people were talking about that and still are talking about that when it comes to the situation at our southern border and to the situation going on with immigrants from all over the place that are trying to get to America. The way that it's kind of just been locked down and demonized, and we've had Brexit and we've had all of these things. And similarly to the jury, we were thinking about this issue in America, and we wanted to talk about it in a way that wasn't like, hey, let me admonish you for your views. We wanted to just show the humanity, show the people that are actually coming here, show the people when they were let in and what that meant to them and what it meant to them to be denied. And to just put that in 2018 and 2020 and wherever we get to put it, kind of does all the work that we needed to. We don't need to call attention to the fact of what's happening now because it's happening.
I had ancestors coming through Ellis Island, the McClatchies from Scotland and the Chris Leaps from Germany. And I know when I used to be a tour guide in New York City, I would always ask my guests if they had any ancestors who came through, and there was always somebody. So it truly is a wonderful story that a lot of people can relate to. On a lighter side, though, you're doing this show, Jonathan, at your old high school. What is it like to go back and have one of the shows that you've written be produced at your old stomping ground?
I mean, it's a cool like homecoming moment, I was involved in theater at my high school. I mostly played in the pits. And that's kind of where my love of theater came from, was starting in high school and just like really enjoying it in the way that all the people that get involved in theater do. So it'll be really cool to come back and have, and I'm working with my old teacher, my old drama teacher. They built a new theater at my school since I've been there, so they're going to be able to film in that theater. And I actually, believe it or not, the reason they're doing this in the first place is because I emailed my old drama teacher asking if he wanted to do my 10-minute musical Book Lovers, which is in the anthology that theater now just released. And because I thought maybe it would be a great thing for them to do, like these 10-minute pod musicals. I was thinking about the pandemic. And I was like, these are going to be available to license through MTI. And he was like, that's great. I like it. Do you have a whole musical? We're going to do a whole musical. So that was awesome of him. But I mean, the reason I reached out to him in the first place was to ask him if he wanted to do something from the anthology. So Theater Now, coming in clutch. Yeah.
We love to hear that. Now, before we hear a song from the Book of Names, Casey, could you tell me a little bit more about the structure of the show?
Yeah, so the structure is basically a single day in the life of a whole group of people. And it was, we didn't want to do like a review or too much of like disparate storylines that don't connect with each other. Like we really wanted it to feel like an entire movement of many different people, but are all on the same journey, and they're all interacting with or involved in some way with each other's storylines as well, because it feels more immediate that way, and more like this is a thing that's actually happening and not like a theoretical, like here's an immigrant story, here's an immigrant story. And so the beginning of the show, just after the prologue that exists, is everybody waking up on the ship as they're arriving at Ellis Island. It's like the crack of dawn. They're not quite sure what to expect. And then we follow these different pockets of people, pockets of people. There's an Albanian family that is a mother and 2 daughters, and they're arriving in America to meet the father and husband of the family, who traveled and immigrated to America years previous because they didn't have enough money to send all of them at the same time, which is a really common thing that happened. And so they're looking forward to, or maybe feeling a little trepidatious about seeing their long lost father after all this time. There's a husband and wife who have an unborn child, who are Jewish and escaping Europe after World War I, and wanting to arrive and start a new life in America for their child to grow up in. And there's a young man and a young woman who meet each other sort of on the boat, getting into the process, and find a little bit of a connection there. And so all of these different groups struggle with getting processed, getting medically examined, getting all of your legal records examined, because they did do all of that stuff. And then ultimately the final judgment of whether or not they're allowed to enter the country or not comes down on them. And the show then ends with the sun rising on the next day, when they're allowed to leave the island and meet their loved ones if they're waiting for them on shore. Or just crossing that second threshold of reaching the mainland and being able to start the rest of their life.
And this song is about the end of one love story and the beginning of another, where Simon and Hannah, who are the Jewish immigrants, they found something wrong with Simon that they think might be contagious, so they are not letting him through. And he has decided that Hannah needs to go and have the child in America so the child can have the life that they wanted the child to have. And Finnegan and Katrina, who met each other on the boat, are making the decision to basically jilt Katrina's mail order husband. Yeah, so Finnegan and Katrina have decided that they are going to sneak past this person that Katrina has promised to, that she's never met. So we have this couple saying goodbye to each other, and
These strangers kind of committing to each other.
Strangers committing to each other.
Yeah.
And just sticking those two things next to each other against the backdrop of a group of immigrants that are about to do the same in some way. Either they're going to reunite with a family member they haven't seen in forever, or they are saying goodbye to the place that they've come from forever, or they're being told that they are not allowed to enter.
Now let's take a listen to this quartet of 2 sets of lovers. We have Simon and Hannah, played by Pablo Paucerica and Mia Nevarez, and we have Finnegan and Katrina, played by Hale, Stewart, and Natalie Welch. The orchestrations for this, as well as for the first song you heard today, were done by Conor Keelan. Here is If This Is It, from the Book of Names by Jonathan Bauerfeld and Casey Kendall.
If this is it, if this is it, I don't know what I'll do when you won't be.
I know.
So if this is it,
if this is it, and it might be it, you'll keep him safe and warm, and the wood stove lit. Every meal that we prepare, every kiss that we have shared, that can be enough for me if it must. Everything we've had is more than what I dared to dream before. If that's all, I'll gladly fall. smile through the tears.
If this is
I'll be
it,
happy with our years,
and I'll try not to think of what could have been. 'Cause this is it.
You're gonna marry this man and you don't love him?
What else am I supposed to do?
Come with me.
How? How could I come with you?
Because you don't love him, you love me.
I do not, Finn. I do not love you.
Okay, I just thought...
If I loved you, if, mind you, because I don't.
It sounds like you might.
If I did have the smallest, tiniest bit of affection for you, which I am not admitting to, then that's a problem, Finn, isn't it?
Take a chance and tell me you're in love. Take my hand, just tell me you're in love. I don't know much about anything, but if I may, this might be love. Close your eyes and whisper you're in love.
People will talk.
Yeah, they'll say if you're wise, you'll kiss her. You're in love.
You're in love.
Of course I am. I would do anything, everything just to hear you say.
Just to be able to say
that this might be love. Every meal we might prepare. Every kiss that we could share.
Every
That all
kiss.
seems like love to me. Yes, it must. Everything we'll have is more.
Everything I dare to dream before. If that's all, I'll gladly fall to dust, to dust.
Take a chance and tell me.
If this is
I'll
it,
smile through the
Take my hand, just tell me.
if this is
be
it,
happy with our years.
I don't know what I'll do when you won't be.
I don't know much about anything,
But I know this is it.
It's been so great catching up with you guys. Congratulations on getting 2 shows produced during this crazy time for artists everywhere. It's really heartening to have this in-depth conversation with you about your process, and it's beautiful to know that the two of you are using the power of theater and the power of music to sort of stir the soul to tell these really important stories. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Well, thank you for talking
Thank
to
you.
us. It's been a pleasure.
She was bright and charming, blunt but otherwise disarming, with a carefree air and flair for who gives a fuck.
Colleen, I was wondering if we could Photoshop this into a Theater Now logo.
And all the while